Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live and Let's Discuss, where sometimes we have to torture ourselves. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Noah.
and we're talking about Sean Connery's quote unquote epic return called Never Say Never Again. The. Oh, Lord. I don't even know where to begin.
Should we begin with the Thunderball drama?
Yes, so back in the day, Fleming was really trying to get some sort of television or film version of Bond off the ground. This would have been the late 50s, early 60s. So we talked about For Your Eyes Only were a series of TV scripts.
Mhm.
There was, of course, the 50s Casino Royale made for TV film, which didn't do well. And then the Thunderball was. I'm trying to remember who is this man? This.
Oh, it's okay. So Thunderball started as a script that Fleming wrote with two other people. The one guy, I don't remember his name because he didn't start any drama. Like not that much drama. He just wanted credit later. But the main villain of this story is Kevin McClory.
Kevin McClory. Um, it fell through. That's the point. Is this whole thing with Thunderball fell through? Ian Fleming took what he had and he published the novel Thunderball,
Yeah.
which is a solid but very different Bond story.
Mhm.
Well, McClory was not happy about this and sued Fleming, and we talked about this last season. I'm of the opinion that it led to his death, the stress of this, and also his really unhealthy lifestyle
Mhm.
led to Fleming's death. So when
Yeah.
they were making Thunderball, they
The movie.
the movie with Sean Connery, Kevin McClory was involved in it.
Yeah. They had to make him a producer because the deal was essentially um, the book can still be distributed like and all the money from the book goes straight to Fleming.
Mhm.
But McClory would get the movie rights essentially.
Yes.
So they had to make him a producer for Thunderball. But it worked out in that case. But then there was a clause or something. So many years have to pass, and then the entire rights for Thunderball and everything that McClory wanted from it went back to McClory, which obviously is the situation why Blofeld, the character, disappeared and Spectre, the organization, disappeared from the Bond movies because McClory claimed he came up with it, which it's unclear how much truth there is to that.
Yeah, McClory,
But
bottom line is McClory's a shit weasel
yeah,
and just
and I
is a
mean,
pain.
you can sympathize with him to some degree if it was just I co-wrote this with Ian. I want my share of the money because he just made this into a book without asking me. Okay, but then he just patiently waited his chance and everything he did to create his own version and then trying to remake that later,
Yes.
his Dalton plans, that's just like scummy.
Yeah, and he's just always been a pain for the Broccolis.
Mhm.
Just a pain. And was his first attempt in remaking Thunderball, and the title "Never Say Never Again" came from Connery's wife. That was her idea. They got Connery on board because he couldn't stand the Broccolis
Yeah.
at all. Um, something something happened between You Only Live Twice and definitely happened during Diamonds Are Forever, and he was done with Bond. I mean, we talked about this when we did Diamonds Are Forever,
Hmm.
that he was offered a bunch of money to even be there, and the
Yeah,
movie
because
suffered.
essentially he had enough with You Only Live Twice already, which you can tell from his performance.
Yes.
So they replaced him with Lazenby, and then that flopped. And so they brought him back for one more with Diamonds.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't get Lazenby again because
Yeah, he was on
his
his hippie phase.
agent said that spy films were over.
Hmm.
So Lazenby didn't come back, which is the dumbest thing. That's like the worst career decision he ever made.
Yeah.
His career never recovered from that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Because he also went on his hippie phase right after, and he made some weird movies.
He made some weird movies. He was supposed to make a movie with Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee died. That was going to be his comeback. They were after Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee and George Lazenby were going to do a film together, because you can see George Lazenby at Bruce Lee's funeral.
Oh,
in the footage, yeah. And he has
man.
long hair.
Yep.
It doesn't even look the same.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so weird. So Connery agrees to do this film. He actually gets into better shape, arguably, than he was in Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, yeah, he definitely looks better in this movie,
looks
even though
better.
he's older.
He's older. He trained with Steven Seagal. Have I ever told you this story?
I think you did.
But for the sake of the audience, so he learned some Aikido from Steven Seagal. This is before Steven Seagal was an actor. He was a stunt choreographer in the early 80s. Also, Kelly LeBrock's bodyguard, which became his third wife. But apparently, Sean Connery, he was so nice about this, and compared to other actors who have terrible Steven Seagal stories, I feel like no one has a good Steven Seagal story. But Sean Connery like started showing off, and I guess Steven Seagal broke his wrist.
Great.
Yeah. And that was early on, so this would have been the early 80s at the latest. It was before this film came out.
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell he upped his fighting game in this, and he's doing his own stunts. And I'm going to try to put as much positive into this review as possible, because I was impressed with a little bit of this movie. So for the sake of this review, we've already talked about Thunderball. You can follow up the plot, because this is just a remake of Thunderball.
Yeah, but for some reason, McClory saw like franchise potential.
I don't know how, because like this is a weird reboot of Bond.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like saying that we ignore everything that didn't have Sean Connery in it. But at the same time, it doesn't work. This movie doesn't work at all. It's so bizarre. Because McClory did a bunch of things that he thought would work. He got Empire Strikes Back's director,
Irvin Kershner himself. And this is 83. This is after Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, which I gotta digress to Irvin Kershner. People say great director, but like here's the deal. Some people who think that he actually had control over Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. Irvin Kershner, as Harrison Ford put it, was great with the actors. But if you look at any behind the scenes of Empire Strikes Back, George Lucas directed that movie. George Lucas has even admitted that he wouldn't let the directors of either Irvin Kershner or Richard Marquand, who directed Return of the Jedi, to direct. Like it was George. It's George's vision. They're George Lucas movies with a little better acting.
Yeah, because he got those directors to do, the stuff with the actors.
Yes. And the other Irvin Kershner movie I can think of is RoboCop 2.
Oh. I haven't seen that one. I've heard it's better than the third one, at least.
Oh, yeah, the third one's garbage, but RoboCop 2 is nonsense.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's so weird, because I think the only films that people know from him are Empire Strikes Back, which everybody loves, this one, which no one likes, and then RoboCop 2, I guess.
Which is nonsense, and it's basically a Frank Miller film, because Frank Miller wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
That's Frank Miller's big break in Hollywood, because there was a screenwriter's strike.
Mm.
when making RoboCop 2, who had Frank Miller's brought in. But basically, Irvin Kershner, his style is part TV movie and then really bizarre cinematography. There are all sorts of weird angles and stuff. Weird acting. The acting is either really wooden or it's over the top, except for Sean Connery.
Yeah, I would say it's just generally the tone is really uneven in a way that doesn't quite work.
Yeah, and here's the thing: we have actors that are pretty good. I mean, Max von Sydow.
Oh yeah, in that one scene.
In this, and
Yeah.
he's terrible. I mean, this man was in The Exorcist. Like he was a fantastic actor, and he's just bad.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't get much to work with, but even then. And it's also weird because something we have to keep in mind. This is not an official Eon Productions Bond movie. So we have to accept that stuff can't be in it.
Yes.
Like the
There's
Bond
no
theme,
gun barrel.
no gun barrel, no Bond theme. Like that stuff is all out. But because we mentioned Max von Sydow and his Blofeld. Obviously, in the movies, it was great how we never saw his face and only the cat, and we got some nice visual stuff with it.
Yes.
This movie doesn't do it. It just shows Max von Sydow.
Yes.
But then it also tries to copy the Eon production movies, especially with Blofeld, because he has a white cat, which is an Eon like creation that's not from the Thunderball book, which McClory claims, oh, I wrote this, I created Blofeld, that's all mine. I'm going to make a true adaptation. No? I think you just copied this a couple elements because, that's what people like.
Yeah. Also, the number 12 is a woman who seduces Bond. That's from the Thunderball film. That's not part of the Thunderball novel at all.
Oh, he also changes the villain's name for some reason. It's Emilio Largo in the book and the movie Thunderball. In this one, it's Maximilian Largo?
Yes, he's a different ethnicity.
Oh yeah, I think the actor is like Austrian or something. Klaus Maria Brandauer.
Yeah, he's doing like a different accent on top of that, so it's just weird. Also makes him overly eccentric and psychotic.
Yeah, I think he's honestly the best part because at least he's something memorable and new.
Oh,
because
number 12, she's also over the top and goofy too.
Yeah, but with him, what's interesting, he's the main villain of this film, but he doesn't feel like a Bond villain in that he feels like a abusive boyfriend for most of the film.
Yes.
Which at least that's memorable, that's something different.
Yeah.
Although I can give it that.
Kim Basinger is terrible in this movie.
Do we even have to say that?
Oh god, she's so well. Here's the thing: she's not a bad actress. She's been in a lot of great movies, but this is bad. Also, we gotta talk about. Let's get to the opening. The opening is the best part of this movie, in my opinion, because it's so ridiculous.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say, oh, because it's so well done.
No, so instead we couldn't have the gun barrel, so we have a helicopter shot, and then we superimpose 007 written over and over again to fill up the whole screen, and you fly through one of the O's. It's
brilliant.
Like POV from a helicopter. And then we cut to Sean Connery running through the jungle. And he does all these like tricks and stuff. He has a blowgun. He's punching people. And he like breaks into this base and like he fights a bunch of people, shoots a bunch of people. Then he gets stabbed by this woman who he was supposed to rescue. We find out it's a training simulator.
However, that works.
I
guess they all pretended to be dead. And we have to point this out, over this entire scene, the theme song is playing because it's a James Bond movie. We gotta have a theme song.
Yes, because we don't have an opening like title sequence.
No, so we just play this. Imagine Octopussy, which we talked about. the Battle of the Bonds. Imagine Octopussy and All Time High is playing over the Cuba sequence.
Yes. So it's this song called Never Say Never Again, which it wasn't the original song either.
Hmm.
I'll have to send you it. They had a lot better of the song, but they changed it. They wanted something a little more upbeat because they're doing this. So they have the most repetitive bad song. And that's a theme with this. That's the better part of the music. This is some of the worst jazz I've ever heard in my life. This whole soundtrack is really bad 80s jazz.
Oh man. I think that theme song, love it or hate it, it's memorable in the sense that it gets stuck in your head after you hear it.
Yeah. And honestly, it does lead to some decent themes in like when it's used instrumentally. It's okay. But the big thing is that Sean Connery is Bond. He's old, but he wants to say, like, hey, I can still do stuff. And he's just been training people instead of actually being a 00, because we have a new M. They make that clear. He's younger than Bond, which is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And he's the worst M.
By far.
Oh, he's terrible. And he's just angry. He yells at Bond. He makes Bond go to this retreat. So now we can actually get the Thunderball plot going.
Yeah, Shrublands. I mean, what you can say is probably this is better set up, like why Bond is in that clinic, than Thunderball, where he's just there and it's like a spa. But again, you don't really need that much setup, I guess.
No, but it's nice. We also have the worst Moneypenny.
I barely remember her. I think they have like one scene where they flirt or something.
They have two.
Two, okay.
And they're both not that good. It makes you wish that they had gotten the Moneypenny from that was in the main line.
Oh, Lois Maxwell? Just get her back as well.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
But I mean, she's still an Octopussy and the next one at this point.
Yes. But I mean, like, it'd be nice to see her and Sean Connery interact again. That would have been nice. The new Q is bad. He's really chipper. He's just like happy to see 007, even though he destroys everything.
I vaguely remember that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I know he was younger than Desmond Llewellyn's Q.
Yes,
I remember that because I remember the scene when Bond is visiting him in his like little workshop, and it's like the worst set I've ever seen for like the Q branch.
Oh, all of these sets are terrible.
Yeah.
That's why I say this looks like a made-for-TV movie at times. Also, I need to talk about the Blu-ray quality. We're very spoiled with the Bond franchise for the most part, because it gets what I call the Star Wars treatment, which is it gets remastered fairly regularly. Never Say Never Again does not get this treatment. Watching the Blu-ray, it looks like a DVD for the most part. There's a few scenes that look better in HD, but for the most part, this movie looked cheap. And it wasn't cheap. That's the thing.
No, let me look up the budget, actually, because I have it right here. The budget was $36 million, apparently.
What was the budget for Octopussy?
Oh, let me double check. The budget for...
Because that'd be an interesting juxtaposition there.
Okay. This one is 36 million. Octopussy was, oh my god, 27.5 million. This was like $10 million more than Octopussy.
And it's terrible.
And it looks so much cheaper.
The underwater fighting in this is pretty good.
Yeah, but...
And it's Sean Connery doing all the scuba diving. Which is
okay, that's good.
And here's the thing with this movie, and this is one of the positives. Sean Connery's doing most of his stunts. I think the only stuff he's not doing, he's not riding the motorcycle. They clearly put a helmet on. He probably rode the motorcycle.
Oh, wait, sorry. I know people can't see this, but that's on the back of my DVD, and it looks like a cheesy goddamn action movie. Like, wow.
Oh yeah, because they want to be different in this, so he doesn't get a car; he gets a motorcycle.
That famous chase sequence.
It's not as bad as I remembered it being, but it's still bad. I'm skipping around here because there's not a lot worth.
I mean, we know the basic story. We just have to talk about the differences. Can we talk about Felix Leiter in this quick? Because that ties in. He's not bad, but it ties in with the bad editing and stuff.
Yes.
When he gets introduced, because I think the actor is like famous, like baseball player or something.
I think so.
Yeah, because when he shows up at an airport, Bond is leaving, and then Felix walks up to him, and that's Felix's introduction, and he just throws a baseball right at Bond's face, and Bond catches it, and we get this establishing shot, like, okay, here's the airport, Bond is here. Then we get the close-up of him catching the ball, and background and everything is completely different. You can tell that was shot way later, and it's just inserted there, and it takes you out. It's amateurish, like.
Yes. We also get the French intelligence agent, who I never remember her name because she's not that important, barely does anything except die. Also, she's one of the many women attracted to old Sean Connery.
Which I guess is more forgivable here because he just looks better. Because I keep think of him in Diamonds Are Forever.
Here's the deal, though. It's so egotistical. And it's so it bothers me to no end. Kim Basinger, who's like in her 20s, is into this old man who's massaging her. But he goes into this health clinic to meet her. Different to the health clinic he was in, where he was banging the young nurse and he throws the pee into, I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double that he's fighting.
Oh yeah, that famous. That's probably the best fight scene in here. That's one where the comedy actually works, I think.
The comedy works to go to that. The comedy works. It's brutal. You know what it reminded me of? Not the Odd Job fight. The fight in You Only Live Twice, where Bond picks up the couch.
Oh,
swinging it around. We have all these wide shots, and that was the thing with some of the Connery fights. There were a lot of wide shots to show that it's the actors fighting one another. But this guy just takes all these hits. He just beats up an old man.
Yep, and
then Bond in good shape, but an old man.
Yeah, and the way Bond defeats him, and there's like this little fake out where Bond thinks, because he throws like a jar of piss at him.
It's his own piss.
Yeah, with his own piss, and then he looks at it like, oh, this is James Bond's urine sample, and Bond is like, what is wrong with my urine? And then he has the realization when the guy falls over, like, oh no, he has been.
A bunch of beakers, and they're all stabbed through him. Which is pretty nasty.
Yeah, but that's a good joke. I give the movie that much.
It is pretty funny. But we get all these young women are attracted to this Sean Connery.
Yeah,
and
it's really like compare it with Octopussy and For Your Eyes Only, where there's a sense of self-awareness.
Yes.
And, yeah, I can see what you mean with egotistical.
It's there's no self-awareness. There's like a whole scene. He walks to a health clinic, and all these women in bikinis just like they're like just gawking over old Sean Connery. And I like Sean Connery, and I'm glad he's in this movie, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you always tell me, like, oh, this movie at least addresses his age, which is a thing. But I think it legitimately only does so because in the beginning, because we need a reason for him to go to Shrublands. And in the book, it was because M was on like a health trip.
Yes.
And he was like, Bond, this is amazing, my dude. You gotta try this. Stop smoking. Stop drinking alcohol. Come on, I'm sending you to the same clinic I went.
Yes. It just doesn't make sense. Like, none of this makes any sense. The only one that makes sense is number 12 being into Bond, and that's because she's just crazy.
Yeah, she's like Xenia Onatopp from GoldenEye, like the predecessor,
but bad.
Mm-hmm.
Really bad.
Her whole stuff, like, I remember her introduction in the Spectre headquarters, which we just follow her feet, which is weird.
There's a lot of following feet in this
You
movie.
could
There's a
almost
lot of
think,
weird camera angles. You know what it reminds me of? Death Wish 3. Another schlocky, like, movie from the same era that has bizarre camera angles. But this is so she dresses in ridiculous outfits.
yeah, I remember the one she's wearing when she gets defeated at the end. It's just she looks so absurd. Like she's a legitimate cartoon character.
Uh-huh.
Like our villain Largo is over the top, but like I said,
Yeah.
he has more like an abusive boyfriend feeling, which is interesting. But she's like chewing the scenery like crazy.
Oh, I know. And some people say she's better than the number 12 was in Thunderball. And I'm like, are you watching the same movie as I am? Like,
at least in the original Thunderball, like the femme fatale fit in
yes,
with the tone.
They also have the longest sex scene, her and Bond.
Oh, you mean the epic scene where we cut back between them in weird sex positions and then underwater life?
Yes. And then they're suddenly in the water. And then she tries to kill Bond and gets chased by all the sharks. He has like a radar thing, and then the Spectres put radar dishes on sharks.
Cut to the scene from the first Austin Powers, sharks with freaking laser beams.
I think that's where that joke comes from. It's just this. This is so dumb. And then she tries to blow up Bond because he's picked up by the fisherman chick that he was hitting on earlier. In which we get Sean Connery's greatest outfit ever. Overalls and nothing else. Which with his chest hair, just I love it. It makes me laugh so hard. Because Bond just looks like a hillbilly.
Oh my god. Okay, I remember it, yeah. That scene, oh my god.
There's a lot of Sean Connery walking around like barely wearing any clothes in this.
Oh yeah, because later there's the scene with Felix. He and Felix have to, for some reason, like change outfits, so they just undress to underwear.
Yes, to get away because he blew up number 12 with the pen.
Yeah, and they just start bicycling in their underwear.
Well, he's on a bicycle, and then Felix is shadow boxing, and they're just in t-shirts and underwear. There's another scene where they infiltrate the ship, but Felix doesn't make it on there, which is kind of from the book, I think. Kind of, sort of, not really. It's just a way to get Bond onto the ship, but we're skipping the greatest two scenes in this movie. The first, the video game.
Yes.
That's
so how in the original Thunderball, like the movie and stuff, or what you just expect from Bond is like him meeting the villain in like a casino, maybe a card game, baccarat, poker, whatever it was in Octopussy, with the dice.
Yeah.
You expect something more classy, like no, we are in the 80s. What are they gonna play?
A video game, and it is early CG. This is the first Bond movie with CG in it. That is CGI because it looks like the Wrath of Khan.
I couldn't tell. I thought it was practical effects. It looks so good.
It's so bad. I initially thought it was 2D animation, but no, it's 3D.
Did you notice in that scene, because the game is you have to shoot at your enemy something, and there's a zoom in effect.
Yes.
When you shoot, and it forms like the gun barrel where it's like.
Yes, I saw. It's like the iris of a camera. Yeah, that's dumb. And then the video game has pain sensors.
Oh yeah.
And Kim Basinger, it's her best acting, I think. Well, one of the few moments she actually gets to act and not woodenly. She looks mortified that this whole thing is going on. And then Bond basically wins a tango with her.
And then we get the epic dance scene. Everyone is standing around them like in a circle. It's this gigantic ballroom. Everyone is just watching these two dancing like over the top, and it's so cringy and uncomfortable.
It's bad. It's he tells her that her brother's dead.
in the middle of dancing when everyone around them is watching. No one else is dancing. We can't even explain how awkward these scenes look. Like the video game scene, it's not just that. It's like Bond and the villain and everyone else there in fancy clothing. And then you just have this game table with like a CG thing in the middle. And I think there was like arcade games standing around as well.
Yes.
And it looks so off. It looks like a parody.
Also, Bond doesn't order a vodka martini at the bar. He orders vodka on the rocks.
Maybe they didn't have the rights.
No,
Oh,
because
in
they
that
asked
same
for one later.
But I think in the same scene there's like a little sign in the background that says like "Welcome to the Casino Royale." And I think that was McClory giving like the middle finger to Cubby because they also didn't own Casino Royale.
It's bad. It's bad is what we're getting at, and it does lead to the French. Well, it leads to one of my favorite moments, which is Bond gives the doorman what the doorman thinks is a bomb. He says, "Don't move, or it'll blow up." And he comes back, and it's just a cigar case.
Yeah, okay, that moment is pretty epic.
That is pretty great. But it does lead to our French intelligence agent dying, getting drowned in a waterbed by number 12, which I'm not sure how that happened. You know what it reminds me of Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's what I was just thinking with the guy, yeah, when Freddy kills him and he's suddenly in the bed.
Now this is a wet dream or something like that. That's the one-liner.
Yep. Oh man.
That
Death Wish 3 and the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel is not what you should be thinking of when watching a James Bond movie.
I think that's Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
It might be.
Yeah. Or it's 4 or 5. It's 4. It's the Dream Master.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's good we have this settled.
See, I've seen that. Because those were characters from Dream Warriors. And they're killed off.
Because that was a sequel. Okay.
Anyway. So we get the motorcycle chase here. And it's ridiculous. And Bond is wearing a tuxedo and a motorcycle helmet, so that way the stunt driver can take over. It's like that scene in E.T. where all the kids put their hoods up and they do like all the crazy stunts with the bikes. You ever seen E.T.?
Nope.
Oh,
but I can imagine how this looks.
Yeah, they put all their hoods on, and then it goes to a wide shot, which is really nice. Spielberg does this wide shot, and it's clearly the stunt doubles because suddenly the kids are bigger. They suddenly are taller.
That's great.
Anyway, so we get this scene, then we get number 12's death, where she wants Bond to write that she was the best sex he'd ever had.
And I mean, at least Connery gets another good line out of it.
He's like, well, there was this woman in Philadelphia. So, like, Philly? Of all places. And then he shoots her with the pen.
And she explodes. Well, first she turns into a dummy, and then she explodes.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's very 80s. 80s did that. That's like a canon film staple. Mm-hmm. So it turns into a dummy and blows up. Yeah, and then Felix shows up for no reason.
He's also in this movie.
Yeah, and he gets Bond out of the scene, which we get to. Bond's riding a bike in his boxers and tank top, and Felix is shadowboxing and jogging behind him.
Just explaining this, it sounds like we are making shit up.
And then literally we cut to they're in scuba gear and they're trying to get onto Largo's yacht, and only Bond gets in, and then he strips down to like his underwear and starts walking around, and then Largo has a bathrobe for him. It's like the amount of Sean Connery just barely wearing clothes in this is just
he got to show off his physique.
He does have a good physique for his age. I watched an interview with him after this movie came out. Because he wore a toupee.
Oh yeah. Wasn't he already going bald like in his 30s?
He was
like
going bald in the 60s.
Mhm.
Um,
And I mean, we know at least from